This is Earthfiles, the award-winning news site with the latest updates in science, environment, and real X-Files. Podcasting in-depth reports beyond the 6 o'clock news by Emmy Award-winning journalist Linda Moulton Howe.
On Tuesday, June 26th, the mystery of the dragonfly-shaped aerial drones took another turn with the release of an alleged secret report containing photographs of alleged extraterrestrial technologies entitled, quote, Commercial Applications Research for Extraterrestrial Technology, known as the acronym CARET, all caps C-A-R-E-T, and the Q4-86 research report, unquote. The date is December 1986, Palo Alto, California, by the Palo Alto CARET Laboratory, also known as PACL. The acronym, all caps PACL. The CARET Laboratory's research goal is stated as, quote, achieving a greater understanding of extraterrestrial technology within the context of commercial applications and civilian use. Understanding of extraterrestrial technology within the context of commercial applications and civilian use, unquote. The document states that the CARET Q4-86 research, quote, focused on 4 key subjects, all of which were based on artifacts of extraterrestrial origin obtained from crash site recovery operations conducted during the last 2 decades within the continental United States between 1966 and 1986. The 4 subjects are listed as 1. Personal anti-gravity generator, so named for its small portable size. 2. 3-dimensional image recorder projector. 3. A complex system of symbols and geometric constructs capable of both defining the functionality of certain artifacts as well as manipulating their behavior, crudely analogous to a computer programming language, but without the need for a compilation or interpretation phase. 4 is blacked out entirely. In a separate follow-up email, the document's leaker, who calls himself by the alias Isaac, explained that the blacked-out sections had been done by CARET in Palo Alto and not by him. Isaac organized his own website for the public to view his long letter of explanation, and the CARET document pages and photographs he has supplied, allegedly sneaked out by him from the CARET laboratory in Palo Alto during his work time there between 1984 and 1987. Isaac's website URL is provided at my news website, www.earthfiles.com, in a 2-part report I have done about Isaac's emailed letters and the alleged CARET document. The photographs show what are described as extraterrestrial instruments used for anti-gravity and for 3-dimensional image recording and projecting. The sizes of the photographed instruments are only inches long, according to Isaac in the document, but the instruments contain a symbol language that resembles what has been photographed on the estimated 25-foot-long dragonfly-shaped aerial drones that have been photographed in May 2007 by Chad in the Bakersfield, California region and by Rajman in Capitola, California. Those symbols have been studied intensely and led to the discovery of possible links between the dragonfly drone tail symbols and NASA's Clementine 1 lunar photography and mapping mission in 1994. In addition to the symbol language, the CARET document on page 56 shows rings that closely match the structure of the rings in the larger-scale dragonfly drones, estimated to be about 25 feet long, flying around. Isaac's email and documents imply that this particular extraterrestrial technology was part of an American government effort to back engineer through civilian scientists and apply commercially at the CARET laboratory in Palo Alto. The ET technology could control gravity and project 3-dimensional images that apparently look real to us humans, but something akin to what we know as holographic images. The document also implies that the projected image technology can record. Now, with this concept of an extraterrestrial technology that can neutralize gravity and project holographic-like three-dimensional images which record data, listen to what happened this week on Monday, June 25, 2007, 6 miles from Maxwell Air Force Base and its Gunter AFB Annex in Montgomery, Alabama. The eyewitness is a longtime technical specialist in security, educated about infrared frequency technologies and normal human aviation. Because his work is highly sensitive, he has asked that I not use his actual name. So I will call him Ted Connors. Ted said that the news media announced last week that there were going to be joint Army-Air Force exercises at Maxwell Air Force Base with lots of airplanes and helicopters beginning on Sunday, June 24th around 8 p.m. Ted said the noise was terrible and unrelenting through Monday night, June 25th, while he was on duty in his security work that involves 32 infrared cameras.
During the night, I patrol a compound. I am in charge of security. A lot of noise all night long. But early in the morning, probably 5:45, because the sun hadn't come up yet. It was still dark.
And this is in the Montgomery, Alabama region.
Right, within 6 miles of Maxwell Air Force Base.
Okay, and you're aware that there's all of this military activity in the sky, and you're working in the context of what kind of technologies?
The infrared cameras, high-frequency infrared technology for a company.
And do you have a whole bank of monitoring screens for all of this infrared?
Correct.
Okay, and is this what you are looking at on or about 6 a.m. on Monday, June 25th?
That would be correct.
So what happens?
Well, at that particular time, I was outside. I just glanced up, because I normally will do that just to check on this equipment. Some of this equipment, the cameras I'm telling you about, are mounted up high, okay, within 20, 30 feet. I was checking, just, normally doing a regular check, when I noticed beside a tree what looked like a ring. And I'm going, I thought somebody had thrown a hubcap up in a tree. And I moved to one side to look at it, and it was just before daylight. The sun was coming up. So you could see, but you couldn't really make out a lot of detail. So as I looked around, I could look up, and I could see this thing, and it wasn't attached to the tree. It wasn't in the tree. It was to the side of the tree, and it had these long, elongated wires that stuck out of the top and then just sort of curved and went up and just sort of disappeared. Mm-hmm. Looked like they just sort of faded out. They didn't stop. They just faded out. And as I looked at it, I looked at an angle, and I could see it looked like a tail on a helicopter, shaped like fan blades, like a ceiling fan. And I thought, well, this is weird. I could see, because of the light from the street lights. We have street lights in the area and a lot of, high mercury vapor lights. I could see these patterns on the bottom of it that looked like blotches, but it looked like some type of hieroglyphics. And I sort of stood there and looked at it for a while. It did not move. It did not make any noise at all. This just absolutely, when I saw it, I'm like, oh, my God. I'm like, this thing was staring at me. It just gave me the heebie-jeebies.
So you had the feeling that this might actually be monitoring you specifically.
Exactly.
Which is what the man in Arizona that I call Ned White, in 1995, he was not far from Eber, Arizona, and he sees one of these, and he had the distinct impression that it was monitoring other people that were there across a meadow from where he was. It actually sank down behind trees as if it was surreptitious surveillance.
See, that's what I felt like. And doing that type of work myself, I know what it feels like, okay, to be surveilled, because I have night vision equipment. I have all this other stuff. And that's what I do. And I felt like this thing was watching me. I had this gut feeling that this thing is either taking pictures of me or it's looking at me, it's scanning me. But I just had this gut feeling that this thing knew that I was there and it was watching me.
How high above you and how far out is this from you?
I would estimate somewhere around altitude-wise, maybe 40 to 60 foot, and possibly about a few yards away, 30, 40 yards off in the distance.
But close enough that you can see this, we'll call it this graphic detail on the bottom.
Right, correct. I could actually make out the symbols, especially on the paddle part, that stuck out.
On the Chad drone photographs and on the Capitola, California, which currently are the two blocks of photographs prior to June that showed lettering on that long tail section, is that what you mean by paddle?
Right, right. It appeared to me like a series of ceiling fan blades that were attached. It had that same contour, like they were sloped on one end and wider toward the end, and then they were connected together. I couldn't make out whether it was 3 or 4, but it looked like they were interconnected by some type of a wire or some type of a bar that connected them together.
It is those series of connected segments that you're seeing this writing.
Right, correct.
And this tail is connected to a ring?
It is, right. The ring appeared to be, from where I was standing, it's hard to judge. To me, it was like a hubcap, but I know it was bigger than that. It would have been probably the size of a 50-gallon drum in diameter.
And so the whole length of this particular object would be maybe how long, do you think?
From the wheel portion, or what I call the wheel portion, back to the tail, I would probably say no more than 10, 15 feet.
And you know that because you're close enough to it and the tree that you have some kind of way to judge the size of it in relationship to the tree.
Right, because there was a large oak tree directly in its path, and it seemed to be hovering over the oak tree. Now, as far as the distance between the top of the oak tree and the device, it's hard to tell because it was off at an angle.
Mm-hmm.
But it seemed like maybe 20, 30 feet at the max from the tree.
Up in the air above it.
Right, correct.
Now, was this absolutely stationary or was there any motion at all?
I saw no motion whatsoever. It was absolutely stationary. And at that point, I had my cell phone, which has a camera, and I grabbed the cell phone and tried to take a picture, actually several pictures, tried to take 3 pictures. It was still dark enough that I couldn't get a really good picture. I even tried to increase the light sensitivity on my cell phone camera to, maybe that would help. But they all came out just kind of blurry, black looking. So I just gave up on that idea and put the cell phone back in my case in the holder on my waist. And that's when it started to move. And its movement was really, really slow. It moved to the west at a very slow rate, maybe 2 miles an hour, 1 mile an hour, something like that.
Was the ring the part that was at the front of the motion?
Yes, it was. The ring moved forward, the tail following. It also looked like protruding antennas, but I couldn't tell. They weren't very large, much larger than the wires that were sticking from the top. But the wires, there were quite a few wires sticking out of this thing from the top.
How high do you think that those wires in the top went up into the air?
Probably 3 to 4 feet off the surface of that ring that I was looking at.
The people who have seen this strange dragonfly drone, one at Barksdale Air Force Base in 1987, described it as not being much more than 25 feet long, that one. It sounds like that what you saw might even be a smaller version.
Yeah, I would say that's possible.
Now, of all of the images that have surfaced publicly so far, which one seems to look the closest to what you saw this week near Maxwell Air Force Base?
The one that I'm looking at here on the Part 1 explanation where it says photographed by Chad, May 6,
Right.
2007, that one really, I mean, if I had to take my guesses of all of them that I've seen, that one is the closest one.
Okay.
Now, the one thing that this thing did, Linda, that was sort of odd to me, when it moved, the first time it moved, and I watched it as it advanced, when it started to move, it was like a double image. How can I explain this?
Like you were seeing a double exposure?
Yeah, exactly. It was like it moved, and then you saw it one place, but you also saw it where it was before, like in two places at once almost. And that was the only time it did that, was just when it initially moved. And then after that, and after the movement started, I didn't see that anymore.
And this Isaac information that has emerged on Tuesday, June 26th, describes this as extraterrestrial technology originally that has the ability to cloak so successfully that it can remain invisible unless there are jamming frequencies that interfere. And another huge part of the components related to this dragonfly, drone, whatever, is that it can project three-dimensional images.
When I saw it, Linda, it blew my mind because I'm pretty grounded. I have to be in what I do for a living.
Are they back engineered by American engineering abilities from the extraterrestrial technology, as Isaac has said, or are we still seeing literal extraterrestrial technology at work?
Well, see, my question is, how can this thing move without making noise? There was absolutely no noise at all. It just moved. Something in the air that doesn't make noise, that moves, is not right.
And so close to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go back to that microsecond in your mind's eye right now when you're looking at it. It's about 20 feet or so above this oak tree, and it's stock still. It's not making any sound. And then describe what you see happened.
Okay, it moved. And when I say it moved, that's when it did that double take thing, and it shifted approximately maybe 2-3 foot to the right.
Like two images of this ring.
That's when I saw the two images, the image that was there where it originally was, and then the image where it had moved to. I was seeing two things, and then the other one sort of blended into it. It was like it sort of sucked it toward it.
You're seeing what looks like a motion going forward 2 or 3 feet, and now there are two images of this ring. And how did it move from that point forward, and what happened to it?
It moved at exactly the same altitude. It didn't go up, it didn't go down, but it slowly, at a couple, 3-4 miles an hour, moved to the west. And as it moved to the west, I followed it with my eyes, but there's so many trees where I'm at, it went in over a tree line and just disappeared. Once it got past the trees, I could not see it anymore. And as a matter of fact, I got in the vehicle to try to follow it, but the area where I'm at is so wooded, you can't really see anything. So, I went 2 or 3 blocks, came back, and that was it.
What was in that direction going west?
Maxwell Air Force Base.
Now, on Tuesday, June 26, when Isaac's information comes out, and you and I talked about it briefly, you made a connection between Isaac's release of information and all the infrared. Can you explain that?
Well, what makes me think that possibly the infrared, what hit me the most was when I read the article, it said that this thing cloaks itself, but it can be jammed. And when I saw that, I knew immediately that I had all this equipment. And I'm thinking, could this possibly be the reason I saw it? Maybe I wouldn't have seen it had I not had the equipment around me and had it not been active, because it was active. And possibly had it been turned off, would I have seen the thing or maybe not? I thought maybe infrared will detect it.
And how many of these dragonfly-shaped drones are in the skies of this planet in both hemispheres, and nobody knows because they're invisible?
Yeah, that's the scary thing. I mean, I've honestly never seen anything like this before. Nothing anywhere near like this thing. It's so different. But yet, like I said, it doesn't appear to be like a UFO. It just appears to be like it came, it's clean. It's almost scary clean. And if this thing shows up again, if I have to climb up on a step ladder with a flashlight and get a picture of this thing, I'm going to get a picture of this thing. This thing is real.
Yeah.
I know what I saw, and I know it's real. I think it's our people that are using it, our government or whoever, but I think that the technology is definitely extraterrestrial. Nothing flies like this. Nothing I've ever seen moves and leaves a signature and then moves to one side, and then the signature moves from where it was over where it is now and disappears. I mean, your mind won't register that. It just doesn't, it doesn't add up.
Could the silence so often reported by human eyewitnesses of highly strange aerial objects in the skies be because what's seen is not always three-dimensional matter as we know it, but perhaps sophisticated image projections that can record data from us and our planet? Also, in a section of the alleged Carrot secret document entitled The Language, it states, quote, "Their hardware wasn't operated in quite the same way as ours. In our technology, even today, we have a combination of hardware and software running almost everything on the planet. Software is more abstract than hardware, but ultimately it needs hardware to run it. In other words, there's no way to write a computer program on a piece of paper, set that piece of paper on a table, and expect it to actually do something. The most powerful code in the world still does not actually do anything until a piece of hardware interprets it and translates its commands into actions. The most powerful code in the world still does not actually do anything until a piece of hardware interprets it and translates its commands into actions. But the ET technology is different. It really did operate like the magical piece of paper sitting on a table, in a manner of speaking. They had something akin to a language that could quite literally execute itself, at least in the presence of a very specific type of field. The language, a term I am still using very loosely, is a system of symbols along with geometric forms and patterns that fit together to form diagrams that are themselves functional. Once they are drawn, so to speak, on a suitable surface made of a suitable material and in the presence of a certain type of field, the diagrams immediately begin performing the desired tasks." Unquote. After reading about the extraterrestrial symbol diagram language, I emailed Isaac this question: could this perhaps explain the function of crop formations? If so, what have the geometries and non-geometries placed on the surface of this planet for at least 25 years have been doing? Or what are the current ones doing now? One of the 9-fold geometry patterns in Madisonville, Tennessee this spring seems similar to one of the markings on the dragonfly drone tail. Isaac replied, quote, "I must confess I know essentially nothing more about crop circles than anyone else. If they, the ETs, are responsible for them and the military knows about it, I've never been told." Unquote.
Thanks for listening to this Earthfiles podcast, from the edges of science, environment, and real X-Files. Go to www.earthfiles.com to see more than 1,000 Earthfiles reports with photographs, drawings, and documents. And visit Earthfiles every day, every week, for new reports and new podcasts. That's www.earthfiles.com.